Oh, hey guys, I'm still in a circle and I can't be bothered to change it, so you just get Circle Excoundrel today. Hey, I'm doing a tier list today, and now this is a unit tier list. Now, do remember when it comes to unit tier lists, we are talking about the individual impact in the early game and then how they impact your overall builds and also individual impact in the late game. Take unit tier lists with a pinch of salt. Really, please do. What I'll do is after this short section of me talking to you, I will show you my 2 unit tier lists as a picture so you don't have to wait for them. And then I'll add the timestamps to the early game start and the late game start tier lists throughout the video. But remember, unit tier lists are a guide to picking up individual units, but also assessing the importance of units in specific builds. Do not take them as an absolute cold hard fact, because remember, synergies are much, much more important than individual units when it comes to winning a game of auto chess. So I just want to make that very, very clear. So yeah, enjoy. I'll show you the 2 tier lists after this, and then we'll go. Don't forget, guys, I stream on twitch.tv/Excoundrel. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment. Every morning, 7 AM GMT onwards, until about Claytano's time. And then I go, and I live my life. This is the 1 to 3 cost early game unit tier list, and this is how I feel about early game units. And you can hear my thought process behind this a little bit later on in the video. This is my late game tier list, and again, as a picture, it might need a bit more explaining, but you can see my explanation throughout the video. The timestamp for the late game tier list is in the description below. But these, at a glance, are my 2 tier lists. I want to put them at the start of the video, just in case you can't be bothered to watch 20 minutes of me talking about individual units. So these are the 2 tier lists. Now, do remember that I am giving away an Xbox One on the channel this month, and the draw will be done at the end of July. To enter, you have to comment on as many videos as you can throughout the month that I upload. So make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the bell to keep up to date with all of the videos that I am releasing. And then give me a comment. What comment do I want today? Okay, yes. What's your favourite band or singer? I want to hear about your guys' music tastes. So let me know what your favourite band or singer is, and even link me to a song in the description below, and I might be able to give them a listen. If you like giveaways, Claytano is giving away a tablet on his channel, although I think this has just been changed to a PS4. So make sure you go and check out Claytano's channel for a PS4 giveaway. See you soon. Okay guys, so I'm going to do my tier list, and what I do in these videos is I split them up into early game and late game. Early game, I'm talking about individual impact of that unit, from 1 cost to 3 costs. I don't include the 4 costs and the 5 costs, because they generally don't appear in the early game as much. I classify early game as rounds 1 to 15, so anything from rounds 1 to 15 in terms of how it can impact your game on an individual level, not talking about how they impact certain synergies, okay? So I'm going to go through my 1 to 3 cost units through the early game on their individual impact. Start off with an easy one, God of War, S+. He's just a broken unit right now. He fits into a lot of compositions, even if you don't utilize the divinity bonus. He's a massive tank, soaks up damage for days. Makes gods being the strongest synergy right now means that he's also brilliant. He's just fantastic. He's just brilliant. Evil Knight. Evil Knight's an interesting one. I would say he's A tier for the simple reason that he can help you get the Agursis bonus early when combined with Agursis Ranger. He's a pretty good tank, and he helps activate a Knight bonus, which Knights are pretty good in the early game. Abyssal Guard, B tier. B tier is what I consider just a good unit, but it's not going to individually carry. He's got good early game stats. He's an underrated 2 cost for sure, but he's not exactly going to blow up and carry the game for you. I'm going to put Taboo Witcher in B tier. Actually, no, he's been nerfed. I'm going to put Taboo Witcher in C tier. Taboo Witcher is good at countering early goblin mechs because they rely on their abilities, but that's about all he's good for, especially with the nerf. He's not fantastic. Red Axe goes in E tier because he's bad. The only thing Red Axe is good for is warrior bonuses and cave clan bonuses. He's basically a synergy unit. You use it to activate some kind of synergy, but he's not a good unit to pick by himself. I will put Frost Rider or Frost Knight in C tier. Got buffed recently, still a bad unit for the most part. He's not fantastic. I'm going to put Skull Hunter in B tier. Skull Hunter is a good Cave Clan unit. He helps you activate the 3 Hunter bonus in the early game. Can be pretty tanky with the Cave Clan bonus, and works quite well in God synergies. But other than that, he's just a solid unit. Let's say Soulbreaker is S tier. Soulbreaker is a brilliant early game unit for sure. I'm going to move Hell Knight down to B tier. The reason I'm going to move Hell Knight down to B tier is because I've realized that I want to put Hell Knight in A tier, and actually there's no way I can rate Evil Knight and Hell Knight on the same field. Evil Knight is much worse than Hell Knight, you know, comparatively on an individual unit basis. So we're going to put Hell Knight in A tier. Hell Knight's fantastic. S tier, Skybreaker, for sure. Skybreaker is one of the best early game units in the game. He's got an incredible ability. He works quite well with gods. He's very good. The Source, as an individual unit, kind of bad. But because of kind of the prevalence of God builds, she's become kind of necessary. So she's a good unit for God builds. And that's why I'm going to move her up slightly from where she was previously. The only reason she's on this tier is because her individual impact in a very popular and powerful build right now is quite strong. Agursis Ranger, I will put her in B tier, same as Evil Knight. They're good units. Once you get them together for the Agursis bonus, that's fantastic, but they're not going to, she's not going to individually carry you. Unicorn, I would say probably C tier. Unicorn's not fantastic. Actually, she's kind of a bad unit. Mostly you buy unicorns to sell them. Yeah. Whisperwood Seer, F tier. He's garbage. Honestly, he's just so bad. Absolutely. Swordman, A tier. He's one of the better warriors in the early game, can do quite a lot of damage with his spin. Very good if you fit him into a god composition with mages buff early on. Good level 2 as well. He's pretty good all round, actually, as is Swordman. Flaming Wizard, I would say she's a B tier unit. She's very, very good early game on an individual level, but she does fall off pretty hard. She's pretty good in god builds, but you can't build her with the Source, which kind of turns off her ability to join mage compositions that want to go with gods. But she's got good early game impact. She falls off pretty hard though. Lightblade Knight, I would put in B tier as well. Lightblade Knight is a good unit, helps you activate the Knight bonus, but as a level 1 unit doesn't really deal that much damage. Better at level 2. Water Spirit, B tier as well. Good unit, good damage on his ability early game, but really they're most helpful to activate spirit bonuses, for instance. Kira, Ogre Mage, F tier, he's bad. Phantom, Shadowcrawler, sorry. Shadowcrawler is, in my opinion, not a good individual unit early on, unless combined with Assassins. She is core, but let me just get this straight. She is core to Assassin builds. She really is core to Assassin builds. Actually, I'm being unfair, B tier. She's core to Assassin builds, but she's not exactly a great early game unit. She's pretty good if you can get that 3 Assassin bonus early on, though. So, speaking of Assassin bonuses, Phantom Queen. Fantastic unit early on. Really good. Can have huge impact in the early round, especially if you get her to level 2. She's definitely an S tier unit. Argali Knight, also an S tier unit. His true damage and heal is unbelievably good. As is Thunder Spirit, also an S tier unit. Thunder Spirit is brilliant. As is, in my opinion, Werewolf. Werewolf is also a brilliant early game unit, which you can include in many different compositions. Shadow Devil, I would say, is an A tier unit. He's been buffed recently. He actually does quite a lot of damage with his early game ability. So I'd say I'd rate him pretty highly. Lord of Sand, good assassin, good base armor, has the beast bonus, ability to activate. So I'd say he's pretty solid. Defector, good but not fantastic. Defector is, in my opinion, once you get past 4 units, he's he loses his efficacy. You take one of their units out of the game, but you still have a Defector who isn't that good. I'd put Shining Dragon, in C tier. Really only good to activate the mage bonus in gods. When he's in gods, he can be very powerful and do a lot of damage, but other than that, not so much. Abyssal Crawler recently got nerfed pretty heavily. I would have rated Abyssal Crawler much, much higher previously, but I don't rate Abyssal Crawler that high anymore, personally anyway. A tier, Dwarf Sniper. Great range, good base damage, good base attack speed, good base ultimate damage. Fallen Witcher. Yeah, A tier for sure, because he can carry early rounds, especially if he gets to level 2. I would say Fallen Witcher is a great early unit. Ripper, also A tier. Not as good as some of the other early game Goblin mechs, because he's kind of got an ability that scales into the mid game, piercing through shielding and armor and stuff like that. He's not as good in terms of early impact on the abilities as the Skybreaker and Soulbreaker. And speaking of the other mech, Heaven Bomber, still a great early game unit. Will fall off massively after level round 15, but a great early game unit, especially in the Gods builds. I'm going to give Stone Spirit E tier. He's not that good. Well, no, that's not true. He's better than... I would pick Stone Spirit over Red Axe Chief because you can activate the Spirit bonus with it. So I'll put him in D tier for that very, very simple reason. Warpwood Sage, I would say, is a C tier unit. Warpwood Sage isn't actually that good for the pure reason that he just takes too long to generate his ultimate. He attacks really slow and isn't even really that tanky. Wormy Boy, I will put in A tier, especially because he's good in God builds. If you combine him with the Source in a God build, he's going to generate a lot of little wormy dudes. Tusk Champion is B tier. The reason Tusk Champion is B tier is because Warriors aren't so good anymore, and Beast Warrior isn't as good as it was previously because of the prevalence of those God builds coming out. He's good in the God build, but I don't usually pick him because just in general, going Warriors is very weak in the current meta. I'll put Venom in E tier. He's not a good early game assassin. Wind Ranger, I will put in A tier. He's good, maybe not S tier, but I would sometimes include him. Almost, actually, do you know what? I would include him over those units that I put in A tier. I would actually include Wind Ranger in compositions where he doesn't actually get included in normally, so that's why I've put him up there. And Desperate Doctor, also S tier, in my opinion. So this is my early game tier list opinion. In terms of the individual impact of these particular units. And you guys can take this from the early game and see how you see fit. I'm going to now do the late game tier list. Okay, so let's have a look at the late game tier list now. This is going to include all units. I'm going to do this fairly quickly and kind of explain as I'm going, otherwise this video is going to go on forever. Right, so let's have a look. Evil Knight, he is still about a B tier. He's not fantastic. Abyssal Guard, C tier. Venomancer, A tier. I actually think he's a good warlock and really good at shredding through knights and shredding through armor in the late game. I think Taboo Witcher is much more effective in the late game than he is in the early game. I'm going to give him a little bit of a raise in tiers. Good for positioning into certain units. And good for shredding mana on really important ability casting units. F tier, Red Axe, he's garbage. Actually, no. He can sometimes stop people casting abilities. Which can be fairly useful in the late game, actually, a little bit like Taboo Witcher, so I'm going to raise him up just ever so slightly. Frost Knight actually isn't good at all in the late game, unfortunately. Skull Hunter, I would say he's not that impactful in the late game either. Soulbreaker, he's okay, but he's not fantastic. I'd definitely say that Hell Knight is one of the S tier late game knights for sure. Skybreaker also not particularly good. The Source is much more important in the late game than sort of anything else in terms of mages, but she's obviously not got great individual impact, but she's fantastic in mage comps and fantastic, almost needed in god comps. Storm Shaman is S plus tier. Storm Shaman is insane right now. Insane in mage comps, insane in god comps, insane versus god comps, insane versus mage comps. He's fantastic. I would say Doom is an S tier unit in the late game. He can have a really big individual impact silence. I would say that Dragon Knight is an A tier unit, mainly because he's so important to Dragon Knight compositions. But, you know, as an individual unit, he's like only good in Dragon Knight. I don't even think he's that good in individual Knight comps. Like 6 Knights without dragons, I don't think he's that good. He's very good in Dragon Knight comps, though. I would say that a Gersis Ranger, she's got a pretty good, like if you get her level 3, for instance, she's actually really solid in the late game, you know, as an individual damage carry. Unicorn, F tier. She's actually just garbage late game. Maybe the heal can sometimes be effective, but mostly garbage. Dark Spirit is still a great unit. F tier for my boy Whisperwood Seer, he's still garbage. God of Thunder is obviously S plus tier, you know, especially in mage comps, and obviously how important he is to god comps. God of War is also S plus tier. Both of these units are insane late game. Helicopter, I would say Helicopter is S tier. I would put him in a lot of compositions. He's great in mage comps. Fantastic in a lot of comps, to be honest, across the board. Great versus hunters. Swordman falls off late game, but he's still a good frontline unit. He's pretty good in mage comps, pretty good in cave mages, for instance. Tortola Elder, A tier, he's like very important to mage comps. As an individual unit, not so good outside of those, but he's almost integral to a lot of late game mage comps. Pirate Captain, S tier, absolutely. Blight Sorcerer, I'd say A tier. Most people don't include him, other than the fact they're trying to engage a Gersis buff or going for 6 mages. Really good in 6 mages, very good versus Knights, very good versus Knights Glacier as well. Flaming Wizard, unfortunately, not so good in the late game. Razorclaw, I wouldn't say he's S plus tier, but I'd definitely say he's S tier. He's a brilliant unit in the late game. Lightblade Knight, I would say, if you obviously have her level 2 and above, she's one of the most important knights in terms of DPS output, so she's fantastic. I would say that Werewolf is definitely an A tier unit in the late game, level 2 and above, he's fantastic too. Siren, I wouldn't say he's S, she's S, I would definitely say she's A. It can be quite difficult to get her ultimate off. She recently got a nerf. I'm finding that she's much more difficult to get her ultimate to land these days. I would say that Water Spirit is a C tier unit. He's not fantastic in the late game. I'd say that Soul Reaper is a brilliant adaptable unit that goes in S tier every single time. Kira gets an F tier. Garly Knight falls off pretty hard in the late game. In fact, I don't even include him in a lot of my I wouldn't include him in Night Glacier if I had the opportunity to. So his usability falls off a lot in the late game. Shadowcrawler in the late game is an integral piece to any assassin composition and therefore has to go in A tier. I would say that Phantom Queen drops off significantly in the late game, which is why she's down there. Sorry about that. Little man was crying. Had to go check what was up. My wife has got him now. Thunder Spirit is, in my opinion, I would say he's about as integral as Tortola Elder to a lot of compositions. I wouldn't say he's like sitting there as like an insane adaptable piece that's like a hardcore carry. I'd say he's good. I'd say he's solid. He definitely has a massive place in a lot of mage compositions for sure. I'm going to put Lord of Sand up in B tier. I think he's a really good late game assassin with a lot of CC, which makes him very powerful. I'm also going to put Shadow Devil in A tier. He's good in Cave Mages, a lot of damage because he's been buffed repeatedly. To be honest, Defector gets even worse as the game goes on. He's only good for the Shaman bonus on neutral rounds when you're playing mages. I would rate Shining Dragon a little bit more highly than I have done previously. Actually, no, I won't. Shining Dragon, no, he can be okay. Shining Dragon can actually do a significant amount of damage in the late game. I think people kind of underestimate how good Shining Dragon can be. Abyssal Crawler, his 1v1 potential in the late game is insane, but he has been nerfed pretty significantly, and he's nowhere near as good as he used to be. Dwarf Sniper, still a great unit, still a fantastic unit, and he deserves his A tier place. Devastator, he's brilliant versus, he's integral to Goblin mech comps, very, very good versus a lot of sort of heavy melee bonuses. I will put Shining Assassin up in A tier as well. Have I got enough space here? Okay, yeah, I have. I'll put Shining Assassin up in A tier as well, brilliant unit, integral to a lot of assassin compositions as well. Fallen Witcher, late game. The thing is about Fallen Witcher is he's a great individual unit, but you don't fit him into many comps. I'll put him in A tier because I'm sure a lot of you have found a lot of success with him, and if you can get him to level 2 or 3, he can be an insane late game carry. I still think Tsunami Stalker is an S plus tier unit. He's just got, the CC is just kind of unparalleled. Ripper, I put him in B tier. He's better than most other Goblin mechs, but he's significantly worse than most of the units at this stage in the game. I actually think Heaven Bomber in the late game is worse than every other Goblin mech. His damage just falls off and goes down through the floor. Stone Spirit is just as bad, to be honest. He's quite tanky late game if you can get him to 3-star, but other than that, nothing significant. I'd say that Warpwood Sage is a bit better in the late game. He's got more durability. Feathered Assassin comps are pretty common, so that's why we see him there. Berserker isn't, I think, just an S tier unit because he's quite adaptable. He's also a main damage carry for a lot of your teams, and he's obviously just a really, really impactful Glacier Clan member to add to any of your Glacier Clan compositions. I'd say that Tusk is actually not so good late game. Single target, not a lot of damage, not great. Wormy Boy, late game can be really strong if you've got a god composition or if you've gone Beast Warrior. Wormy Boy can be incredibly strong. I think I underrated Venom a little bit. Actually, no, I didn't. Venom's still not that good. Good in god assassin comps, but other than that, not so good. I would say that Wind Ranger is still very good late game. Wind Ranger is still pretty solid late game. And I'd say that Desperate Doctor falls off a little bit the more targets that he has to face, but he's still a good unit overall. So this is... Oh, wait a second. You guys can't actually quite see the finished product here. Let me just move that up. This is the finished product of the late game tier list. That's what I feel like in terms of late game overall tier list impact. So that's my personal opinion. Again, remember, tier lists aren't so useful just for the simple fact that obviously synergies matter more than units, but this gives you a good idea about the individual impact of units, you know, across multiple compositions and kind of how powerful they are. But yeah, Storm Shaman is like my #1 unit right now. Storm Shaman is just so good across the board. And you should all get Storm Shamans because they counter gods pretty well. I'll see you next time.